Hi everyone, this is another video from Today I Learned Cloud, and I'm making another video today, but this time it's about storage accounts inside of Microsoft Azure. This storage account I've called Till Cloud Demo, so Today I Learned Cloud Demo, and I've deployed it in the East US region, but you can see that it's a Geo-Redundant Storage account, which means that there's a primary copy available in the East US and a secondary copy in the West US. So if the primary did fail, we'd be able to roll over to the secondary region in the West US. So what I wanted to really show today is the difference between a blob storage account and a file share that are both basically running in the Microsoft Azure storage account. So here we can see this containers item, which is where you would put your blob data, and then there's also file shares, which is essentially a file share that you would run inside the storage account. So if we open up containers, so I'm just going to create a container here, and I'm going to call it demo, and just click create. This should take, no time at all. So now we have this created. This is where you would actually store your blob objects. And for a container inside a blob storage account, it's essentially a key value store where you're essentially giving a key as the file name, essentially, or object name, and then the value is actually the file or item that you upload into the storage account. So that basically it's different than a file structure that you would find in a normal hard drive where you have things stored in directories. In this case, everything is essentially a key value or a key that is pointing to a value. And even if things have stuff stored in a key that looks like a path, it really isn't a path. And they won't actually be stored next to each other like they would in a file system or file share. So inside of here, you can actually upload data. So you would essentially click this box, and then from here you would select your file or object, I guess, that you want to upload. And also you can overwrite the file if it's already there. So I'm going to select this file.txt. This is just a simple file. And we'll upload. And you can see that happened pretty quick. And now the file's in here. I can click it and see all kinds of different properties about the file or the blob that's stored in the blob storage. We can see that this is a server encrypted file, not because I had that enabled on the storage account when I created it. I can also download the file from here if I wanted to. And also if I wanted to prevent other people from deleting this file because I want it to be secure, I guess, you would click this acquire lease here. And once you have a lease on it, the file can't be deleted or edited until the lease is broken, which you can do right here. And you can do that through the API as well. Another thing you can do is under the snapshots, you can actually create one on the blob. So just click this. Now I have a snapshot of it. So let's say we then go and edit the file, and we didn't like what we edited it to, we can restore it. So let's just close out of here. Or you can edit directly here. So you can see that's just the file has a contents test. So we'll close this out, and then let's go back to the container itself. On the left-hand side of the storage account, or the container, we can see different settings. These are mostly storage account specific over here. So you can actually see the access keys. Obviously I'm going to rotate these out after this video, but this is what you would use to use an API or application to connect to the storage account. Under Geo Replication, here we can see that we have the primary in the East US and the secondary in the West US, as you can see down here as well. And you can also adapt the core settings configuration here. So this is different. I'm using a general purpose V1 storage account, but I can upgrade this to the general purpose V2 account. It really just depends what you'd like. The main difference is how things are built. And then you could also upgrade to premium. This one was just a standard for the demo. I have secure transfer required, so that all transfers or communication with the storage account has to be done securely. And I have public blob access disabled. I've also restricted it so that the TLS connection to the blob account has to be at least TLS version 1.2, just to make it more secure. And like I mentioned previously, we have the Geo-Redundant Storage, which gives us backup in another primary or another secondary region. But you can also change that. If I only wanted it in a single region where I didn't really need things backed up in case of for disaster recovery, I would just choose the local redundant storage. So if I would want access to actually read the data from the secondary storage location, I would want to use read access Geo-Redundant Storage. That basically gives you a read endpoint from both regions, so the primary and the secondary. Also, another feature that is on the storage account is the encryption. So every object or file that you stored in there can be encrypted by default, which the original setting is the Microsoft managed keys. So they're the ones essentially tracking and keeping the key secure. And then you can also use your own custom key so that even Microsoft themselves wouldn't be able to decrypt the data unless you give them the key. If you needed to give somebody access to one of your blobs or files or queues or tables, this is where you would do it. You could generate a shared access signature. This would generate essentially a key that you can give to someone so that they can either download a single file or have access to the entire contents of a container or folder in the file share. So then if I go to file shares, it's very much like the UI anyway, is very much like the interface that we had to the blob storage. But in this case, I want to create a file share instead of a container. So again, I can call it demo, and you can limit the quota. So if I only wanted to have this file share have a certain amount of storage space, this is where you would set it, or have it up to the default of 5 terabytes essentially. So I'm just going to put 100 gigs, and then I'll create. So as you can see, that file share got created, and if we open it up, you now have a place where you can again upload files, but this is no longer like a key value store like the blob storage. It is a file share which would look a lot like a directory on a desktop or laptop computer, where files inside folders are really kept near each other, and listing things inside of a folder is much easier. So again, I can upload a file here. So now we have a copy of the file both in blob storage and the file storage. You can add a directory. So if I wanted to make a directory here, you can do this. And then, yeah, so you basically just use it like your hard drive, except for this is stored in the cloud, and you can put pretty much as much data as you want here. And if I go back into the file share, there's this connect button up here. So when I click that, this actually gives you details on how to mount the drive onto either a Windows machine, a Linux machine, or Mac OS. So this is one major difference between the file share and the blob storage, is that you can actually just mount it as a drive on your machine. Blob storage kind of lets you do this, but you would need some third-party software to do it. But yeah, this is a PowerShell example of how to connect to it. You can give it whatever drive letter that you want to use. And then you should be able to access essentially this share locally on your machine or server that you're setting it up on. And then anything put into that file share is uploaded to the cloud or downloaded from the cloud when you're working with it. And again, you can do Linux. So this gives you a shell script that you can run inside a terminal essentially, and that will help you mount this drive. And Mac OS has a very similar thing. So SMB mount essentially. So once you've done that in either any of these operating systems, you'll then have full access to this file share, making it very easy to, I guess, even back up data or just use data from the cloud locally on your machine. If I go back to the mains page, you'll see this Open an Explorer button up here. What this does is it actually links you off to some software that Microsoft provides, which lets you basically work with blob storage or file storage or their tables and queues with a local program instead of having to do it through the browser. This makes it really easy to work with any blob object that's stored in the container or file share just using this application. And it works on Linux, Mac, and OS X I've used it on all three. It works great. And they use, behind the scenes now, they use another utility called AZ Copy, and that helps transfer files extremely fast between either servers in the Azure cloud to the storage account, or from a storage account to another storage account, or from a file share to a object storage account, or a blob storage account. So that is just a brief overview of Azure storage accounts, and essentially containers for blob storage and file shares for file storage, and how you might want to use them to store your data. If you want to know more or learn more about storage accounts and the file share and differences between file shares and blob storage, you can visit the article at todayilearncloud.com/storage. That will link you to an article that shows you many differences between the file shares in Azure storage and the blob containers in file storage as well. And thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video.